Hola, hola guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Roxanne. If it's your first time here, then welcome. I want to talk to you guys today about the books that I read in the month of November. So the first book that I finished was Things We Lost in the Fire, Stories by Mariana Enriquez. I really enjoyed this book. I think overall I gave it like a 4 out of 5 stars. It was a very dark and powerful read. She uses very beautiful writing and is able to weave a lot of social commentary into her stories, while simultaneously making us be afraid or anxious or feel that suspense while reading them. I certainly enjoyed some stories more than others, but I think overall as a collection they complement each other very well, and you're able to really see the commentary that she wants to portray to you about women in the Latinx culture, things like machismo, expectations about sexual identity, things like that. I would say my favorite stories were the first and the last one, but overall I really did enjoy this, and it's a pretty short book if you want to get into it. Second book that I finished was Unmentionable, The Victorian Lady's Guide to Sex, Marriage, and Manners. I gave this like a 4 out of 5 or 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was really enjoyable to read. It was really funny. I laughed out loud sometimes and definitely sort of snickered or snorted to myself a few times while I was reading it. It was very informative and very approachable. The way that she writes it is, in essence, she is taking you through like back in time to the Victorian era, and she's teaching you about what your life would be if you were definitely an upper class white woman in this time, because that's what we see most in media, and I think that's definitely why she wanted to give you that perspective as a whole. I obviously wish that we would have been able to go more into the lives of women of color, but it is what it is. She gives you a very particular perspective, and she's very honest with you. She's very forthright with you about that. That is the perspective that she wants to give you. So you kind of go in eyes wide open. So overall, I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was great. I think this is a really good sort of starting point for nonfiction if you're not used to nonfiction. I think this is very readable, very approachable. The next book that I finished was Columbine by Dave Cullen, and this was it feels weird to say it, but it was amazing. It was so amazing, this book. It was very approachable, very readable. The way that he tells the story of what happened to you, I learned so much. It was so thorough, so well researched, and he's very forthright with you about things that he either had to change or take out or edit in any way, in the different editions. So when I read nonfiction, I always like to read introductions or author's notes ahead of time, like before I actually get into the book, because it really tells you if things have changed since your initial publishing and things like that. So it's very helpful, so that you're able to get the most out of it as you can. I read this in physical form, but also in audiobook, and the audiobook was very good as well. I felt like I got to know all of the people involved very well. It was a really good balance of learning about the lives and the mentalities of the killers, but also really getting into the lives of all of the victims. You learn so much about them, so it doesn't ever feel like the spectacle of it, or the all of the news and attention, and definitely not the killers, overshadow the victims, the families, and the actual people who passed. So I think this was great. I think this is a book that I would recommend to everybody, especially given how often it happens here. These are things that we need to not forget, because I was actually thinking about, from October 1st on, I think there were like 3 mass shootings that were in the news, that just the ones that were in the news, and literally within days, people forgot about them. They stopped reporting on them. I don't remember the names of the killers, and and nor do I remember seeing anything about the victims. So I guess a little bit about the church victims, the little girl and all that, but people forget so quickly, and I think books like these really give us the opportunity to keep it in our head and not forget that this is something that happens so often in this country. So I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. Then I read War Against All Puerto Ricans, Revolution and Terror in America's Colony by Nelson E. Dennis. And I really enjoyed this. I read this in audiobook as well as physical form, and I did not like the audiobook. The narrator probably did not speak any Spanish because a lot of the words were mispronounced. A lot of the town names were mispronounced, so that was really annoying and distracting. And plus his voice was kind of annoying. But the actual content of the book I enjoyed, and it is upsetting to see how different the lives of Puerto Ricans and the history of the island could have been, just with a few changes. And it's very upsetting to see how little regard Puerto Rico and Puerto Ricans have been treated, and just how little important the voice of every Puerto Rican who wanted to be heard and who wanted freedom and who wanted independence, how little it mattered. So it's very upsetting, but it is a book that can serve as a wake-up call for many. I learned a lot about my island's history through it, and it's definitely pushed me to read more books about it, to give me a fuller perspective and to give me even more details and more information, because this obviously focuses on something very specific. As far as the technical things of the book was written fine and it was approachable, but I didn't really understand why he organized things in the way that he organized them. Like, in nonfiction books that I've read, you are told the story of what happened, and if something really big is happening, like if a very important person is about to be introduced, then they'll tell you a little bit about the individual and then they'll tell you what happened with them, or it'll be like, this happened on this day and this day and this other day, and this guy walked in and his name was blah blah blah, and he is the most important person that you're reading about. And then after that introduction, then you're told about this guy's life. He was a little bit all over the place, like things that I didn't really see why he was going there or what he was talking about, and then it wouldn't be until chapters later that they would be reintroduced. So it was his organization of the book was a little bit weird and distracting, but overall I think what I got from it was very good, and I enjoyed reading it, and I think I gave it like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Not as amazing as some of the people that I know that have read it, but overall I think it was a worthwhile read, and I'll keep it in my shelves and it will prompt me to read more for sure. Then the book that I am currently reading and have been currently reading now for like 2.5, almost 3 weeks, is Helter Skelter, the true story of the Manson murders. I am really enjoying this book. This, again, like Columbine, is very specific. It is very approachable. It is very well researched, so detailed, but in the way that it's told, they're not things that you really forget, and they're not things that you feel are insignificant. I'm really, once I sit down with it, I'm just like very enthralled in it, and it's a quick read as well. The guy who wrote it is the lawyer who tried the case, and so it's a really great perspective, and it starts off being third person omniscient, and you get through the 2 main murders, and then it starts being first person, because then he brings himself into the story, and he's telling you from his perspective how everything went down, how the investigation continued, and everything like that. And a lot of what a lot of true story nonfiction teaches me is how many fuck ups happen in the cases and in the investigations. And I guess it's definitely not fair for me to judge because I'm not there and I'm not a trained investigator, but it is frustrating when the facts are being presented to you and it's like the family could have been caught so much earlier. The detectives just were not communicating with each other. So much shit went wrong that could have gone so much better, and that these crimes could have been solved so much quicker. But alas, things happen as they do. So hopefully I'll be able to finish that one soon. I've already posted my December TBR, and I will be moving on to those once I finish with this one. I really want to fully focus on this one and not start another book, because then I'll get distracted and it'll just take me longer. So hopefully I'll be able to finish this one this week and then go on to some of my other reads. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought about them, and let me know what you read in the month of November. If you have a November wrap up, I would love to see it. Let me know down below. As always, thank you for watching and for listening. I love you guys.